Hello and welcome to another edition of the NRS Insights podcast. I'm John Lofstock, and today I'm joined by Suzy Silliman, the Senior Vice President of Data Strategy and Sales for NRS, and Brandon Thurber, the Vice President of Data Sales and Client Success at NRS. So today we're going to discuss the NRS same-store sales report for February. And as a reminder, National Retail Solutions operates the largest point-of-sale terminal-based platform and digital payment processing service for independent retailers. And as of February, the NRS network is comprised of 29,100 active terminals, scanning purchases at independent retailers, including bodegas, convenience stores, liquor stores, and grocers. So with that, I'd like to welcome Suzy and Brandon. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, John. Was it your idea to video this the Monday morning after daylight savings time?
Man, I feel like I just saw Mike Tyson is going to get back in the ring again, but I swear I got in the ring with him this morning because that's how I feel this Monday.
I actually agree with you.
It's the Mondayest of Mondays, as they say.
I agree. Well, on a good note, it does look like February was a good month for our retailers. Same store sales looks like we're up almost 4%, about 3.5% from a year earlier. So, Brandon, why don't you kick us off and tell us about the past month?
Yeah, it was a bounce back month for NRS independent retailers, which I think will show in the results when we compare to the national averages. So NRS adjusted for the number of days was up 3.5% in dollars. But again, it's an important metric to remember that this isn't just dollars. Traffic was up and units are also up. So that after a slower January has brought year-to-date dollar sales up 2% and the total number of units up 4.1%. So this is looking to continue a strong trend.
So great. Now, February's always been typically a slow month. Of course, we have Valentine's Day, but that's probably more going to be looking forward to next month's report. But
yeah,
actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because it's in the middle of February, right? We're really able to get a good read on the days leading up to Valentine's Day and then the weekend following, which since Valentine's Day fell right in the middle of the week, we actually are seeing some positive movement from both bookends of that holiday.
Okay, very nice. So, what can trends wise? We spoke quite a bit about trends on our last podcast. Any nuggets come out of this past month?
So it does look a little bit like folks' New Year's resolutions wore off because
John, you predicted that.
See?
We are seeing a bounce back of bev categories, of the tobacco categories. Dollar sales are up pretty substantially. For instance, beer, the FMB cider category is almost up 9% year over year. And smokeless tobacco, in the way that we categorize things, was up about 21%. Now, much of that, a significant portion of that growth is due to the modern oral nicotine products like Zyn, On, Rogue. They have really done well year over year.
Okay. And one of the things I noticed that when I took away my takeaways from the report were that you called out a few states who were doing well, and you don't too often get to see Wyoming listed as a trending state. So let's talk about that.
So when we dug into it at the geo level, looking at state trends and DMA trends, the DMAs and stores in the states that really were significantly up versus prior year were exactly those states, right? Including Arizona, Wyoming, etc. And then when you sort of try to peel back that onion and understand what was going on at that time that could be responsible for seeing sales increases in the area of 25-30%. All three of those states, John, did have some type of a weather event in, at the beginning, mid days of February. So, similar, and it was a planned weather event, right? So it was nationally televised. Folks were warned about it. So we believe that that really was a function of panic buying, going out, making sure that you were prepared for both the snow event and the rain flood events that impacted those states.
See, I thought that was just a Northeast thing. We might get 1 to 3 inches tomorrow, so I better run to the supermarket and buy 17 gallons of milk just to load up,
Right. Right.
which goes on around here. It
Yeah.
always makes me laugh.
But it is a reminder in terms of how granular our data is, right? It is
Mhm.
at the store level, it's at the transaction level. So we are able to really do discovery at a more granular level than the aggregate that is generally used in the same store sales reports, and identify any standouts in store behaviors that that can be described by geographic location, events, etc.
Mhm.
But sort of looping back to the question about other category performance in February, what we were seeing as it pertains to holidays, particularly Valentine's Day, but even the Mardi Gras period, the period leading up to Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, etc. A couple of things stood out for Valentine's Day, John. And over the last couple of months, we've been talking about how the candy category overall has really been in a bit of flux, knowing that cost of goods has increased quite a bit. Pricing has increased. There's been some downsizing with package sizes, and that sort of the combination of the perfect storm revealed itself through our data over the last several months, where not just dollar sales, but quantity sales, traffic, etc., baskets were falling versus year ago. What
Mhm.
we did see in February, likely triggered by Valentine's Day, was a bit of a recovery there, where not just versus prior month, which is what we would expect, right? You would expect more candy sales in February than in January, because of resolutions, because of Valentine's Day, etc. But we saw an increase versus year ago in same store selling. So it'll be interesting to look at March and whether or not that recovery is maintained, or if we see those sales sort of slump back to the pre-Valentine's Day bump. The other thing that stood out to me, and Brandon referenced this in terms of the Bevel categories. The Bevel categories across the board definitely saw a rebound, right? A rebound from dry January, but they also were up versus year ago. When you think about that Valentine's Day holiday, the sparkling or bubbly champagne category tends to be historically one that did see or would see a spike in February. And we weren't seeing that this year. We saw overall wine sales increase by, by a decent amount, 7-8%. But the sparkling category itself actually decreased versus a year ago. So that's interesting to really try to I guess predict what that is going to mean from a future perspective. We do know that that price of champagne has gone up. There had been some issues in the regions that produce the grapes that are primarily used in champagne, with some supply issues, etc. But seeing that number fall during the Valentine's Day period was very interesting for me.
Another trend in the Bevel space that the urban independent seems to be doing better than the national trend is in hard seltzer. Hard seltzer's taken a bit of a hit in the news and publications, etc., with double-digit declines. And I can tell you that through the beginning of March, year to date versus last year, hard seltzer is just about flat in the urban independent. So just another difference, another highlight that not everything's the same in the urban independent as it is in the national scope of things, and where your gaps in coverage may need a little bit of visibility to understand the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. And something, oh, sorry, Suzy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, and again, theme related, in the past, we have seen around that Mardi Gras, the week leading up to Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, we have seen consistently in the past a sales bump in related categories, right? In terms of adult beverage, snacking types of categories that saw an increase. And interesting as it may be, this year we did not see that increase in that isolated period versus Mardi Gras last year. The dates, timing, etc., was a bit different last year in terms of when Mardi Gras fell, but just looking at Mardi Gras versus Mardi Gras, at a total US level or total NRS network level, but also drilling down and looking at New Orleans behavior within the New Orleans DMA, we actually saw decreases, some moderate decreases when you compare Mardi Gras 2024 to Mardi Gras 2023 across sort of those celebration categories.
Yeah, one of the things we haven't mentioned was that the Super Bowl took place in February as well. So usually you see, a big spike in on alcoholic beverages, which is, the dry January thing. If it wasn't over by the end of January, it's definitely over by the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Brandon and his team looked into that as well. So do you want to sort of shed some light on your insights there?
Sure. As John mentioned, we did see a bump in the beer, beval categories, some snacking categories. Maybe not as geographically focused as we would have thought, with the Super Bowl being in Las Vegas and the two teams playing in there being from different areas of the country, San Francisco and Kansas City. We tried to take a deep dive into it all, and it was more of a universal increase or decrease depending on the category. So we thought there would be a little bit more there, but it's always, you can always get a pulse of those categories with our data.
Mm-hmm. All right, and the last thing I'd like to mention, and Suzy kind of touched on this, the one other takeaway is it has to be encouraging that in addition to transactions being up, the number of goods sold during each transaction was up. So is that a good indicator of going forward, or what do you take away from that?
Yeah, so that's one of those things, John, that it's a time will tell, right? We have over time seen an increase in average items per basket. So we see that slowly inching up, which always is good. It's good for the retailer. They want to build baskets. It's good for the economy. People are buying more, sort of with the money that they have, et cetera. But again, because there was sort of that holiday or event that was in February that could sort of stimulate sort of non-regular buying, whether it is, buying flowers, buying candy, buying cards, buying other gift types of products. I think it'll be important to look at March and see if that is being maintained or is a trend that is being reflected in the coming month as well.
All right, excellent. So any parting thoughts, anything you think we should be keeping an eye on other than obviously what you just mentioned for March? Any big events? I'm trying to think. March, what is March? St. Patrick's Day.
Next weekend we'll keep our eye on that. I'm sure that'll have maybe a switch in preference in certain beer brands. That'll be something that we'll be able to tell pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big on-premise holiday though, right? For St. Patrick's Day, more people seem to go out to hit in the bars, and
we have in the past seen it reflect in the sort of Irish types of the Irish brands in our stores.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Sure, the Guinness and the Smith. Guinness always gets a huge sales bump in March.
Jameson. even
some are
some of the lesser known brands we've seen, we've definitely seen notable lifts in sales, really in 2-3 days surrounding St. Patrick's Day.
Well,
And and it'll be interesting with St. Patrick's Day this year as a Sunday. Then the celebrations will all pretty much be the days before up until when St. Patrick's Day, like Valentine's Day this year, tends to fall in the middle of the week. Sometimes you see that on the bookends. There's some celebrations that are the Friday or Saturday after, some that are the Friday, Saturday before. But being that it is actually on a weekend, that residual in the following weekend or following week will likely not be present. So we'll see all the movement in the days right before and on St. Patrick's Day proper.
Okay, excellent. I look forward to it, and I look forward to contributing to those numbers. So I'll probably be responsible for about 1% of those alcohol increases.
Okay, we'll drill into the Newark DMA on our next call and see.
Good. I look forward to it. So, all right, I want to thank Suzy and Brandon for your time today. Thank you very much for your insights. I always learn a lot from these calls, and I really appreciate the work you guys do. So for Brandon and Suzy, I'm John Lofstock. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to have you join us at a future NRS Same Store Sales Report podcast. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.